Hey everyone, so let's talk about probably the best book out there, which is also available for free on YouTube in case you were wondering. The audiobook version, Influence by Robert Chaldini. So, I'm not gonna look at any notes or anything. I have gone through this book a few times. Probably the best book out there on cognitive biases. You read Poor Charlie's Almanac, it has this interesting section on 25 cognitive biases. Doesn't really dive that deep into it. This book certainly gets its point across through a lot of major ones. Reciprocity, confirmation bias, commitment consistency bias, reward punishment, basic one, misweighting bias, association bias, anchoring effect. There are a lot of them in here, and it's sort of surprising how our brain works in that way. But let's simply start with the very basic reward and punishment. I'm sure psychologists have done a lot of research on this, but humans tend to move towards reward and they move away from punishment. You will see this everywhere. Scarcity might be a better word for it. The punishment they create, creating an artificial shortage of this. Something visible in business funnels people do. So only 8 seats are left. Buy right now. Buy it while stock lasts. For a limited time only. It makes you feel like a rush. Your brain stops being rational. So you think something is scarce, even if you don't want it, you still might get it. Some of it is genuine, but well, we don't want the pain of losing the item. We want to avoid the doubt and regret of what would happen if we didn't get it. So we would tend to say yes to the product or whatever the person is trying to say. Sell, reward, thousands of ways. Buy one, get one free, 50% off, you're getting a discount, free samples. I don't know, social proof. Let's move on to social proof actually. The next one. People tend to. We are social animals. Humans are social animals. We are evolved that way. So when we see a lot of people doing something, we are much more likely to follow it. You can break down this bias into herding or whatever. That's why we prefer products that have more reviews to them, more 5-star reviews, the singers that everyone is listening to, the movies that are famous. Everyone has a few tastes that are unique, but in generally, if you're making a choice, selecting a doctor, let's just say if your friend referred you one, you'll most likely go with that one. Um, Out of two doctors that you know nothing about. Let's just put it that way. Plays a role. And we just like to be part of groups, do the same things everyone else is doing, which makes it very easy to manipulate civilization as a whole or whatever and brainwash us. You care about Instagram followers, right? That's social proof. And it doesn't really guarantee success in life or anything. You can use it to your advantage, like all cognitive biases, or to your disadvantage. Let's move on to the next one, which would be availability bias, not availability heuristic. Is this mentioned in the book? I think it is. So we tend to make our decisions based on what is in front of us, not what might potentially be out there. Human brain, I don't know why it's made this way, but we just see the moment or what's easily available or accessible without considering the possibility that there might be something out there which will be more beneficial to us. Let's just say you go to class in university, there are a bunch of girls around you, and then you just select one of them and you start thinking about that person, he or she or whatever, and you just focus entirely on her and you think that is everything and you have the best chance of getting them or whatever. You forget that there are probably 4 billion women out there on the planet. And if I take just 1% of them who might be good, that's still a pretty high ratio. Availability bias. Okay, same with products. If you have to like make a choice between getting a drink or booking something and there's something easily accessible on your phone, you'll most likely select that option as opposed to going through the hustle of coming up with something else, which will likely be better, but you don't think outside the box. Alright, let's move on to the next one. Authority bias. They conducted the experiment. A researcher had people in trial who were supposed to give electric shock to actors who were pretending like they're getting shocked or whatever, and the researcher kept on asking the subjects to keep on increasing the voltage. A lot of people increase the voltage far over what is safe for humans to tolerate. Guess what happened? They saw the people acting in pain. They still kept on doing it because they followed the authority, the researcher. We tend to make this mistake. Just because someone is in a position of authority doesn't automatically guarantee that there. It usually does, not always. Keep that in mind. Just be on your guard. Happens with doctors. If a doctor prescribes you something stupid, you'll most likely take it. And he gave examples about that, how like the doctor misspelled something, the nurse still followed it, despite knowing that is not the correct thing to do. Was the nurse stupid? Probably yes, but also she was following the doctor. Anyhow, that is authority bias in play. What else do we have? Association bias. We tend to like to associate ourselves with things that are successful or winning. If we are feeling shitty, particularly, associating yourself with the famous football team. We somehow think if we are part of that popular culture or we are associating ourselves to whatever team or whatever, it makes us look cool. Really does not, but that's what people think at least. It's hanging out with the cool kids there, idiot. Let's ignore that. But that's one example. Association bias. Then you have like subcategories of it, like which was, I don't know, halo and horn effect, where if someone is attractive, this might also be associated to anchoring. A lot of biases come into play, but well, let's just put it this way: if someone is attractive, they're more likely going to, you're more likely going to think they're also smart, they're also good at everything. What if someone is ugly? It will be the opposite. Yes, people do have standards like that. As a matter of fact, prisoners who were attractive were given less punishment, I think almost half as less as those that were not as attractive. By judges. He refers that in the book. Yeah, devil effect, horn effect. Someone is not as good looking, you're more likely going to associate them with being stupid. And let's talk about the amazing bias, confirmation bias, moving on to the next one. Humans have the tendency to confirm their own beliefs. A neutral book on butterflies was given to people, but separated into two groups, I think, one that liked butterflies, one that didn't. And after they read the book, they were asked, what do you think the book said about butterflies? The group that liked the butterflies said, oh, the book was indicating that butterflies are nice or whatever. The book that disliked them said the opposite. But the book discussed both views. But the people who were reading it actively ignored everything else and just stuck to the facts that supported their opinion. We have done this. When you dislike someone, you ignore all their good points and all the good things they did in the past and just focus on that one bad thing and turn them into a bad person. And when you like someone, you think they're holy or sacred or whatever, and that they don't have any flaws. Happens. What else? What am I missing? I don't think the book discusses Dunning-Kruger effect. Idiots don't know they're being idiots because they're too idiot to figure that out. But give me 1 second. Oh yeah, let's talk about reciprocity. I believe this was the third one I missed. Humans have a need to repay kindness. You can use this as manipulation. I dislike this one, but it is what it is. So, if someone gives you a flower and then asks for a donation, you'll feel like shit if you refuse helping them out in that point. I think that he gave an example of some Indian group doing that out, and then People would just throw the flowers later on in the trash cans and they would just recycle them. I mean, people would, like the same Indians who were handing them out and then asking for donations, would just go there. Because in society, we are frowned upon if we don't repay kindness, which is a good thing, except it's being misused a lot. But I guess it depends. Salespeople do that, providing value and then asking for something in return. Doesn't work when you know the trick, though. That's another thing that's not mentioned here. But once you're aware of the bias or the psychological trick being played out, it doesn't work as effectively as it would normally do. Um, Banning something makes it very desirable. Interesting, right? There is that takeaway. So, if something is banned or taboo, we somehow think it's more important and more precious. It increases its value. To the stupid mind or to the genius mind, it sometimes is not. And you would see in society a lot of things are not looked upon nicely. And then when teenagers become adults, they just go out and get drunk and all of that. But yeah, it happens. Commitment, consistency. I didn't mention this one. Well, when we start something, we are more likely going to finish it. This is good in the sense that if you start going to the gym or whatever, you're most likely going to continue that after you've taken the first step and repeated that choice. It wires in your brain. On the contrary, if you're in a shitty relationship, you will stay with it. If you're in a shitty university or class, you will stay with it. Shitty habit, you will stay with it. Commitment, consistency. We are more likely going to be consistent with whatever we started. But this is bigger in interpersonal relationships. Uh, People who are similar to us greatly influence our choices. So if someone who was very much like me came to sell me something, I would more likely say yes to it, as opposed to someone who I had no idea of, like an 80-year-old guy. I think this one plays a role. It's not that big, but it certainly makes more sense. Their authority bias has been discussed. In negotiations, starting with an outrageous request and retreating from there can win concessions. So he talked about, I think, he used donating, asking people to donate blood as an example, or look after a delinquent or something like that. And those, and when you, and when he like made a really big demand at the beginning, and then just lowered it later on, it doesn't matter how big the demand is. It's just that the initial demand has to be even bigger than that. So, like, if I were going to, let's just call this contrast bias, I think that is the word for it. If I ask you to pay $1,000 to attend this event that I'm going to, you'll likely be like, that's a lot of money. Let's say I ask you to pay $50,000 to go to the paid event, and you refuse and you're like, nah, not gonna happen. And then I'm like, alright, let's do the 1,001 then. And you're more tempted to say yes, as opposed to just saying 1,000 outright. I mean, you just like, this one is sort of paradoxical because I also know the opposite approach, which is like you take a step by step. You get them to say yes. Which book was this? How to Win Friends and Influence People, Dale Carnegie. Step by step getting them to say yes, and then they will most likely continue to do that. But in negotiations, certainly, when you're making deals, when you're making business propositions, feels kind of manipulative, but if the other person is being an asshole, feel free to try it, I suppose. Yeah. Start out with an outrageous demand. Like, let's get married. If they refuse, alright, let's about how we go on a date. You'll likely get turned on both the options, but instead of getting married, maybe, how about we go on an adventure together to the Caribbean islands? How about then, let's just grab coffee. Or oh no, I don't think this one is going to work that well. If someone wants to be like a sacrificial person, feel free to experiment with this idea in terms of things aside from business negotiations and see how it goes. Yeah, Our brain loves shortcuts, and they can be used to manipulate us without our realizations, which are all of these cognitive biases. That is some of the key takeaways from Influence that I did the first half without reading the book, and the later half reading some points that are in there. Alright. See you in the next book summary, takeaway, something like that for myself.